Tonight we have a very interesting array of speeches, all members of the Clifton Toastmasters. Our first speech is by Bruce, and evaluating him tonight is Maxine Cohen. Maxine, please share with us what Bruce's objectives are for this particular speech.
This is simply it's supposed to be his first Pathways icebreaker, but this is actually his third one, plus he had another one that was Legacy. So he is actually an advanced Toastmaster, but it really is to make sure that the Toastmaster is feeling comfortable for the first time getting up before an audience.
Oh, wow, yeah.
That's really the objective.
You're kidding.
Yeah.
Of course, for him, I'll be looking for a lot more than that. But that is the objective.
Thank you.
It's very hard to do it for.
I know it would normally be a challenge for your very first speech. However, Bruce is a seasoned speaker. He has a bunch of letters after his name that I'm not even familiar with. Yeah, wonderful. So, I'd like to bring up Bruce Ford, dedication and commitment. Dedication and commitment, Bruce Ford.
Thank you, Suzanne. It was a very cold winter. It was one of the coldest winters on record. 3 consecutive weeks of sub-temperatures, roughly 15 degrees, 14 degrees, and there was no end in sight in terms of the coldness. It was already getting dark, and this young soldier was just starting his second leg of his tour of duty, walking the perimeter of this military depot on Fort Dix, part of the base there. And it was brutally cold, and he knew that he had 8 more treks around that wide military depot. And within that depot, there were these old World War II buildings, old, decrepitated, easy to get into. And on the far side of the perimeter, hidden away behind a crop of trees, were a large lake that had frozen over. And as that cold wind started coming across, it was just literally would suck the heat off your body. So instead of a 15-degree temperature, it was really about a -10. And even though he was dressed in proper gear, clothing, had his weapon, he could still feel the biting cold cutting across his face. He could barely feel his hands. His feet were brutally cold. And he was just thinking it through. What was he going to do? How could he stay out of the wind? How could he protect himself and still perform his duty as a soldier? The closest location to the depot was the main base, which was a full 45 minutes away. And he knew that he wouldn't see the NCOIC to relieve him of duty for another 6 rotations of that perimeter walk. So he had a long, long night ahead of him. Would he go into one of those buildings and start a fire to keep himself warm? After all, he's all by himself. There was no one who could check him on this. No one was going to come back into the scene for another 3 hours perhaps, or maybe 4. Ladies and gentlemen, Madam Toastmaster, that was me. I was that young soldier, and I was constantly thinking through, what was I going to do? It was getting so cold, I couldn't feel anything. And I was thinking to myself as I was walking around that perimeter, well, 9 weeks ago, I was home in bed, laying, watching some TV, chilling. What was I doing here? Why was I here at Fort Dix? What was I going to do? And it was a huge question about values, because up until that point, I was just your freshman, I was just an 18-year-old, about to go off to college. However, I found myself 9 weeks before that at Fort Dix, at the reception station, with 165 other young men, full of all kind of stuff, dreams about what the military was going to offer us, had an idea of what boot camp was going to be. And 3 days at the reception station where we got our haircuts, got all of our military gear, got fitted. We were ready for boot camp. We were going to kick some butt with those drill sergeants. And when we got our gear and they lined us up that third day and they threw us into those cattle cars, 75 men per car, and the vehicles took us up to boot camp, for the next 8 weeks, it was pure torture, hell. We learned a lot about values of loyalty, duty, respect, selfless service, integrity, and personal courage. These were words that we had heard before many times before, and yet they didn't have any meaning to me until I had that guard duty after 10 weeks of training. I no longer saw myself as a single individual. I recognized that I had a duty to perform. And I also knew that others had done it before me. No matter how bad the conditions were, no matter what was happening, I had a job to do. And there was no way I was going to go into one of those barracks and try to relax and sleep. Because for 4 weeks in that brutal cold, one of the things we did learn, training every single day, out in the cold from 5:30 in the morning to roughly 8 p.m. was that one of the most interesting things about cold is after you get numb and can no longer feel yourself, it's very easy to go to sleep. It's very easy to relax and not wake up. It would have been very easy to go into one of those buildings, lay down, and not be found for a while. And I would have also been derelict of duty. So coming back to where we are today as a Toastmaster, 4.5 years ago, I was advised that I needed to find a place where I could fit in, where there was a place where people were trying to challenge themselves, people who had certain values. And I found the Clifton Toastmaster Club. And I learned about the 4 core values of the Toastmaster program: integrity, respect, service, and I believe it's excellence. And one of the things that we use with those core values, that provides the same kind of structure where we attempt to improve ourselves on a day-to-day basis each time we show up at the club. We all wear different hats as leaders. We all wear different hats as communicators. And we are striving to personally develop ourselves. And that was something that resonated with me in a very profound way. And it propelled me. I thought I was going to stay in Toastmasters, maybe the CC manual, and that was going to be it. But I found myself also serving. I found myself becoming the Vice President of Education, becoming technically proficient, something that fell back into my military career, and recognizing that I enjoyed watching other people develop as well. And as I became president of the club, it really gave me a thrill visiting other clubs as well. And as an area director for 2 consecutive years, I really got to know the leadership, the overall structure of this club. And if you're here tonight, I want to congratulate each and every one of you here for serving and also fulfilling your destiny, because change truly is possible. Thank you. Thank you.
Primers, could you please give us 2 minutes? For abbreviated format, I would like to call up our first evaluator, Maxine Cohen, who evaluated Bruce for speech.
Fellow Toastmasters, lovely guest, and of course Bruce. This is, of course, Bruce's 4th pathway, well, 4th evaluation, icebreaker, and your introduction was fantastic. It drew me so much in that I felt cold. I actually felt that I was there with you. And I thought the fact that then you afterwards told us it was you, I was hoping you were going to tell us that, because it really resonated with me. I also really like the fact that you were making eye contact with everyone, walked all around the room, seemed extremely confident in speaking, and loved how you brought in the armed forces. I never thought there was anything in the armed forces and Toastmasters, but you showed us that in fact there are a lot of similarities between the two. One thing that I can tell you to work on is your rush at the end. I know you saw the red,
Yeah.
and that's probably why, but time yourself, and it's hard. 4 to 6 minutes is hard
Yeah.
for us more experienced people. Anyway, it's very hard. But I thought it was that you're a very gifted speaker,
thank
and
you.
I really hope to hear more of your speeches.
Sure, thank you. Wow. Yeah, that's a good one.